Hey guys, it's JWiz, back again with another MapleStory Classic World video for you. So today I want to talk about my wish list for some of the things that I think should be changed for the release of the Classic World server. We have quite the list for you today, so let me know in the comments if you think I hit everything, your opinions, thoughts, comments, concerns. Alright, so without further ado, let's go. Starting off the list of number one is, I think, a topic that almost everyone's going to agree with, and that is to remove the need for HP washing. Now, I think that some balancing, some way, shape, or form, whether that's classes, bosses, mobs, gear, something needs to take place to eliminate the need for HP washing. I wouldn't mind if there was another mechanic maybe that they thought about implementing, like a questing system or something to grind for that would inevitably give you more HP, but right off the bat, an easy one, HP washing. Classic World cannot be released with HP washing mechanics built into the game. So, number two on our list brings us to general class balancing. And that's another one I think that a lot of people are going to be on board with, but for those of you who played back in the day, you guys will know better than anyone, the best classes in the game were way up here, way up here. The worst classes in the game were way down here. So I think they need to be just a little bit closer. I'm not saying they need to be all perfectly even, but that disparity needs to be tightened a little bit. And there's a lot of ways to do that, and that could be buffing certain classes. I think that there's a lot of classes that have sort of dead abilities that have very little to no use, almost no one uses them. They could be reworked, replaced, changed to make certain classes better, certain classes worse, to some degree maybe. You know, you remove a good ability or rework a good ability to a certain degree. I think that every class needs to be able to boss at about the same level as well. So when we're progressing through Zac, Pap, Horntail, stuff like that, pretty much every class should be able to take on those bosses about the same time. Now I know that like some people are going to be really strong compared to other people. That's why, I mean, generally speaking, everyone around 120s should be about able to complete this. Everyone around 140s, 150s should be about able to complete this. So that also leads us into what I think is another really important thing for me at least, and that is for every class to have two stats. I think that single stat builds kind of break the game. Two stats kind of keeps everyone honest, kind of keeps everybody closer in strength. And then it's so difficult as well for a lot of people to pull off these single stat builds, and it kind of leads to people who just have a ton of funding for whatever reason, able to just be miles ahead of other players at the exact same point in their character, like a level 90 Dexless Night Lord versus regular old build Bowmaster, or Bowman. They're not even close. So I think that all in all of the classes needs to be just adjusted so that everyone is a little bit more on a close to even playing field, at the very least. Close to even is all we can shoot for. So next up on the list is number 3, and this is where I think I may start losing a few of you, but in my opinion, your general progression through the game needs to be updated. Now this kind of breaks down into like a few different areas, but I think first off, the training path for a lot of classes is kind of already known. So certain classes go to these maps for these level tiers and grind for certain drops. And some of those paths are just much easier than others. Some of those paths also lead to more money. Some of those paths also lead to you being able to get like better equips for your character earlier, for example. think that that just needs to be adjusted a little bit, and that could just be, you know, some map changes. That could just be some drop changes. Nothing too crazy there. But another thing that is, I think, a little bit unbalanced is the equipment pathway. So there are certain monsters that drop certain level range gear for certain classes, and that varies between all kinds of monsters. So a level 70 mob could be dropping level 60 gear, but at the same time there's also level 45 mobs, for example, 44 maybe, that drop level 50 gear, or, you know, higher level stuff. So depending on who you are, that could benefit you or like severely hurt your ability to potentially get some gear or some good gear, grind for some stuff. So I think that alone needs to be changed. I think that also equipment diversity needs to be available. So like, it seems like, especially back in the day, certain weapon types were just way better. And I think that that just needs to be rebalanced so that at least, depending on your build, every weapon is viable. So that, I think, needs a little bit of a touching up, just to make every item have its own place. That's all. And then that leads us down to the fact that when the game is released, we're probably only going to see level 70-ish, maybe level 80 gear, maybe, I don't know, maybe even less, like 60. So, as most people probably know who are watching at this point, who have played classically at least, back in 2005, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, equipment only went up, I think, to like 120 for like probably, I think 120 was the pink bean stuff. I think the pink bean set, so like the timeless gears. And then like also a ton of people don't even use them because they come out so late on. Like your level 100 stuff is probably a little bit better considering that you have it all scrolled. It might be a higher roll, whatever. It takes a long time to grind them. But from 120 to 200, there's almost nothing. So I think that those gaps need to be filled, especially with equipment, and they need to be balanced Classic Plus type equipment. So this is a great opportunity for them to take advantage of basically adding new content to the game. So I think after 120, I would say keep the timeless stuff, maybe adjust it to some degree if you guys think that it's broken, whatever, it needs to be adjusted or stronger, weaker, or anything like that. But there needs to be gear sets for 130, 140, 150, 160, 70, 80, all the way up to 200 eventually. And then, you know, you can go from there. But they need to add more gear because we can't just get to a certain point where everyone is starting to get to higher and higher levels and the best gear out in the game is level 100. You know what I mean? It can't be that way. And it gives you something to also grind for. Gives you an excuse to release new bosses, new content. It all ties in. So the progression overall, I think, needs to be updated. It can't just be cut and paste. Progression needs to be updated in a classic way. Next on the list is number 4, and that is 1x EXP Progression. Now, I think this is a really, really important thing to have in Classic World. I haven't been hearing a lot of people saying that they want 1x Progression. I know it's slow, I know it's difficult. It's supposed to be slow and difficult, and I think that that's important for the health and longevity of the server. Obviously, we want this to stick, we want this to stay. So making it slow just makes the game longer, gives it more life for a longer amount of time, in theory, for the majority of people. So 1x EXP Progression, I think, is definitely going to be a good thing for Classic World. So next is another one that I think is really important for general health of the game. So at number 5, it's going to be essentially reworking broken items, broken areas that exist in the pre-Big Bang era, which is going to be like your NLC potions need to be reworked, there's certain spots in NLC when they come out that are just completely abyss when it comes to leveling up for certain classes at certain level ranges. This includes maple weapons, which I think is probably going to be really unpopular for some people. They just can't be the best weapons in the whole game. I think maple weapons have their place. They just should be toned down to where they're at a balanced state. Everyone knows the Maple Condio was cracked. Everyone knows that, like, maple stabs, maple shields, all kinds of other stuff like that. They were over the top, really, really good. They had no stat requirements, so that's why they were also even better. So I think also giving them, like, potentially like a 2-stat requirement, things like that. I think there's certain areas like NLC, there's others that just need to be balanced so that they can fit into the game and not be completely broken. And I think that just has to be like some sort of nerf with EXP or spawn rate or something. Same thing with maple weapons. They can exist in the game. I think that they just need to be toned down a little bit and fit instead of being complete outliers. That's all. This takes us to number 6 on the list. And number 6 on the list might just be the most important entry on the list. By the way, this is in no particular order, this list. So number 6 is the implementation of Classic Plus content in MapleStory Classic World. I think that we need to first of all have all of the old Classic content implemented into the game. That's themed dungeons, hidden streets, all quests, party quests, everything you can think of. That includes like Terra Forest, stuff like that. Then we should be adding Classic Plus content. So that means new classic areas, maybe a new classic content, new classic maps, in the classic art style. All of this should be in the classic art style, classic graphics, classic everything. This would also include classic events, classic gear. So this is talking like level 130 gear, 140 gear, 50 gear, 60 gear, all the way up to 200 gear. Quests that also extend all the way, Classic Plus quests. This goes on to a bunch of other things, but it could be party quests. This goes into like a massive thing, but bottom line, Classic Plus content is what's going to make or break the server. If Classic Plus isn't going to be there for a really, really, really long time, or if there are no plans for Classic Plus, I think that Classic World is in trouble. If they do think that they're going to start implementing Classic Plus content, I think that that's the only way that this can continue, because if you just release all the content, the classic content, once everyone consumes the classic content, then what? If there's nothing else, people are just going to leave. So Classic Plus is what's going to make or break this. I think in addition to that, community input should be taken into some account. So whether that's polls, whether that's I don't know, whether they're just listening to the community some way, somehow, you should be able to have your say inputted into the game. Now this is kind of like reaching to what OSRS does, but I think that it works. A lot of people vote. I think a lot of people would vote, especially for the people who like the game, play the game all the time. They want to participate. They want their voice to be heard. They're the ones playing. So listening to the community, releasing Classic Plus content, releasing Classic Plus gear, Classic Plus quests. I mean, this is where all the money's going to be made. So this is a non-negotiable. This is the most important thing for MapleStory Classic World. What will the Classic Plus content be, and will it be good? We'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, so the next item on our list is a fun one. I think a lot of people will like, but it has to do with customization. I think on release we should have, first of all, a lot more customization overall. Not just with our characters, with UI, with macros, with how we play the game, period. There should just be a ton more customization just because of when the game is being released. But more specifically, I think is you should be able to customize your equipment. So like, we all know that there's different color equipment, that different color equipment has X stats, Y stats, B stats, whatever. Some of them just aren't going to be useful to you for whatever reason, depending on what your build is. So I think that there should be some mechanic to at least be able to customize colors of your equipment. I think maybe someone likes red, maybe someone likes black. I think you should also be able to just expand on the original colors. So like, you should be able to have maybe yellow equipment. Why not? Why not have orange thief equipment maybe, or something? Like, why not? At this point, it seems kind of low maintenance. So like, I think that that's some things that a lot of people would really appreciate. In addition to that, I think that you should be able to have some sort of accolades that you can display about your account. I think people really like to show off things like that. So like, whether that is your class rank on the server, your overall rank on the server, you know, like level XP wise, whether it's boss KC, whether it's, you know, like items, like you could have a collection log and have like items displayed, how many drops you've found in the game, and have all that be able to be seen by other players, so that, you know, you could see that, you know, wow, that guy just walked by in Kerning City and holy crap, dude, he's got 10,000 Zachem kills. Like, that's crazy. Holy crap, like, that's so cool though. So I think that's something that would really make like a classic, like an improvement to the classic world that we remember playing as a kid in like 2025. Continuing down the list is number 8, another very important one in my opinion, and this is focused upon party quests and party play. So a little bit of a two-parter. So we'll start with party quests. Party quests, a bunch of them exist in Classic. Now, they really fall off, I would say, around level 100 max. The rewards for some of them are a little eh. Back in the day, they were really difficult to get some of those rewards for not quite as big of a reward. So I think that potentially some of the older stuff needs to be reworked so that, you know, the rewards that you're getting are at least useful throughout all of Classic World. Doesn't say that something you get in a party quest needs to be best in slot, but it needs to be useful for a majority of players, I think, and fairly obtainable within a level range, within an RNG range, something like that. After we get to a certain point where, you know, we have all the Classic Party Quests to release, I think that we need to then look forward to Classic Plus Party Quests, which I think is an easy transition. Again, they need to have good rewards, they need to have good XP rewards, they need to be fun, they need to be interactive, they need to be in the Classic Plus style that expands on the Classic Plus world that we already have in place. I think that's going to be big. I think a lot of later game players are really going to enjoy the fact that they don't just have to solo grind maps only to level up once you get to a certain point. It's nice to have some alternative XP revenues coming in, I suppose you could say. It's fun, it changes things up, it breaks up the monotony of just essentially killing the same monsters on the same map for weeks, months on end. Party quests need to be in the game. Classic Plus party quests need to be added, they need to be updated, they need to be reworked in a way that makes sense, reward-wise, XP-wise, time-wise, for what you're putting into it. Simple as that. Now moving on to just general party play. This kind of piggybacks off the last point I made, but there needs to be an emphasis on party play and playing with others. Now this is separate from just party quests. I think that grinding in parties is exactly what makes MapleStory Classic classic. So whether that is an incentive that means, you know, when you're in a party you gain slightly more XP, whether when you're in a party you gain slightly more of a drop rate. You have a slightly higher drop rate, or maybe, you know, parties get access to some kind of slightly boosted maps where maybe you have, again, higher XP, slightly higher drop rate, maybe slightly higher spawn rate. But that pretty much covers it. I think that party play is extremely important, and especially late game, it's ignored. And I think that's because mostly a lot of content wasn't filled in super late game in the classic world back in the day. But now we have that opportunity to fill those gaps, and I think that we need to continue to have the party play aspect go deep into the game if we want Classic World to last, be healthy, etc., etc. Moving forward to number 9. Now, this one's a little more lighthearted, a little less serious, but I still think holds some value. So, number 9 is going to be additional mounts, additional chairs, things that you can earn in the game that you can essentially show off. Everyone loves this in MapleStory. Everyone loves to show off things that I have and you don't. You know what I mean? So, we'll start with mounts. So, I think that, first of all, in Classic, if you guys think back, for those of you who played back then, there were mounts in the game, but they were what I would call essentially hyper unobtainable, which I don't think they need to be. They also don't need to be, you know, giving you insane jump, insane speed. They could just be cosmetic. Now, some can give you a speed boost like they did back in the day, give you a jump boost, whatever. But I think it's just cool, you know, an extra layer of things that you can grind for, that you can show off, that you know, players would appreciate. So whether that's, you know, boss mounts. Imagine you have like a Papulatus mount, for example. That would be so cool. That would be so cool. It doesn't need to have a bunch of utility, but again, like you're flying around on a little Papulatus guy. That'd be sweet. That would be sweet. Now, it doesn't need to just be bosses either. I mean, it could be any mob that they so choose that would make sense, for example. There's plenty of mobs in the game that could be seen or used or easily adapted to be a mount. And it can be, I'm totally for it being like an extremely low drop rate, maybe tradable, things like that for people who want to just buy them, not grind for them. But more mounts in the game, the better. The more ways to customize your character, the more ways to stand out, the better. Now, moving on to chairs, same thing. Everyone thinks it'd be sweet to sit on a chair that is essentially just Zakum's arms behind them. Everyone would think that's cool. Everyone would think that Horntail sitting over top of them with the heads would be really cool. But again, there's other, doesn't have to just be bosses. It can be regular mobs. And you just grind. There's just a really small chance that you potentially get some rare chair, or it doesn't have to be representative of the mob either. It can be representative of the region, representative of, you know, the event that's going on at the time, or anything of that nature. Like I said, anything to stand out, anything to customize your character will be a hit with the player base, especially the classic MapleStory players. I'm sure of that. So moving down the list, at number 10 is going to be slightly controversial, I think, for some people. I've heard some people calling for, you know, the way it was originally. And I just don't think if we're going to release the game this year, next year, that we can have this in the game. It's just sort of unrealistic. So I think that we need auction houses. Some sort of marketplace that's not just run specifically by players in the FM just spamming with all ats, selling steelies, whatever it is. The auction house, I think, is just going to be for ease of use for absolutely everyone. So I understand the nostalgia of having everybody in the FM spamming and you guys all trading, but yeah, I think that the auction house realistically is what's going to be best for Classic World. I understand the nostalgia of wanting that, but thinking back in reality, it's not very effective. So an auction house, I think, is going to be actually beneficial to the Classic server without a doubt. Alright guys, last but not least, thank you for bearing with me all the way to the bottom of this list. This is another one that I think is extremely important for the health and well-being of MapleStory Classic World. No more leeching. Leeching can't be in the game. It just can't be in the game. I know if you guys have played back in the day, you will remember that leeching was at one point the absolute best way to level up for like a massive level range. Now, I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. There's no reason that leeching should be in the game. There's absolutely no reason that leeching should be meta for leveling up in any way, shape, or form. Now, and again, this goes back to just the health of the server. Because if you do have leeching, that leads to severe pay to win, some potentially IRL trading going on. And then not only that, it's just breaking the game mechanics. It's just not healthy for the game in any way, shape, or form. Leeching should never make it to MapleStory Classic World on release or at any point, in my opinion, without question. Alright guys, thank you for watching. That'll be the end of the video today. Make sure that if you stuck around this long that you like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep the discussion going in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are on my takes, what your takes are, some other things that I may have missed. Anything along those lines when it comes to MapleStory Classic World. Let's keep the conversation going, and there'll be more content to come in the future. So, until then, see you later. Thanks, guys.